Manhunt Detective Story Magazine. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and today we're going to take a look at this famous, classic, hard-boiled detective story magazine, digest size, called Manhunt. And it started out being called Manhunt Detective Story Magazine, and eventually, after a while, it would just be called Manhunt. But under any name, it was the premier hard-boiled crime magazine of the 50s and 60s. It was the natural following of Black Mask magazine, the pulp mag that had Hammett and Chandler and Raoul Whitfield and everybody in that, those pulp pages in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And in 1953, Manhunt began with their first issue, and it's a digest-sized magazine throughout the whole run, except in 57 and 58 when there were 12 what they call bedsheet or magazine size issues, which we'll get to in the next video because I want to do those separate. But here we're going to talk about the digest size, and they're really a very attractive group of digests with the yellow spines. And they started in January 1953 with number 1, and they ran to 1967. Over 100 issues, and it started off with, and there were also British, Australian, and French and other editions of Manhunt. See how Black Mask and Manhunt, they just go together, so naturally flow together, because Manhunt was the natural successor to Black Mask. And Hard Boiled, which Wayne Dundee started and I continued, was a natural successor to Manhunt. That was in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. But now we're going to look at Manhunt. I'm going to show you some of the early issues and go through them month by month. First issue, January 1953, number 1. They got the most famous writer, the hottest guy in town, Mickey Spillane, and they had a novel by him, Everybody's Watching Me, which is a great title, and it's also a paranoid kind of a title, right out of almost like Cornell Woolrich. And in fact, it does have Cornell Woolrich in this issue, or William Irish, Kenneth Millar, Richard S. Prather, Frank Kane, others. It's a terrific magazine. Interesting thing about the magazine, they had in the back cover, they used the mugged and printed with pictures of and a little writing about some of the authors, in Mickey Spillane, Richard Prather, Evan Hunter, who had a lot of different names, and Kenneth Millar. Interesting thing too is they used 2-color for their artwork on some of the stories. So you'll see, kind of nice, they opened up, and some of the other stories they used 2-color. They used a hypodermic needle, Evan Hunter story. They used pink on this page. Richard S. Prather. So they in the beginning, this was a very prestigious magazine. It was the place, Kenneth Millar, the place for if you were a crime writer, you wanted to be in this magazine. It was a nice cover. Floyd Mahana. Interesting thing is, I just want to read to you some of what they say about here. No more Manhunt? When a new story by Mickey Spillane is put on sale, it usually disappears from newsstands in a matter of hours. As you may have heard, Mr. Spillane's book, The Long Wait, was given a record initial printing of 2.5 million copies and was followed by a few days later with another 500,000, and the entire 3 million copies were completely sold out within 1 week. And the same is true of the new offerings of William Irish, Kenneth Millar, Richard Prather, Frank Kane, Elzar Litsky, John Ross Macdonald, and other authors featured in this issue and in issues to come. Manhunt, which will bring you nearly a dozen stories by these authors in each issue, will be printed in large quantities in order that all news dealers may have generously supplied. But until their needs are regulated, shortages here and there will be inevitable. You don't want to go out to your dealer and be told, no more Manhunt, sold out. And this was like their thing to try and get you to try and subscribe. And that's the first issue. Second issue, they continue the Mickey Spillane story. Everyone's Watching Me. And just want to read begged, borrowed, or stolen. Is that how you got this issue of Manhunt? If so, you're in big company, because over 100,000 readers asked for the first issue of Manhunt at stands, and they were sold out. We knew there had never before been anything like Manhunt, supplying the best in tough, realistic detective fiction. But there was no way of gauging what the print order for the first edition should have been. We took a stab at 600,000, but we know that 1 million would have been a better guess. A few scattered newsstands were overloaded last month, but as for the majority, within 5 days after Manhunt hit the newsstands, the bombardment began. Postal cards, telephone calls, telegrams, letters. Increase my order by 100. Give me a dozen more. Make mine 700 next month. I could have sold 1,000. So they were really like putting it on thick with getting Manhunt into the consciousness of the readers. That's the second issue. And again, in the back cover, you have some authors, they didn't use photos. Some authors, they just use a negative. But you have Elazar John Evans, who was Howard Brown, and Mickey Spillane, who is still in this issue. And this is some of the John Ross McDonald story. A lot of great authors in this issue. Michael Fraser, Elazar Lipsky, and Mickey Spillane, Everyone's Watching Me. So this is the first 2 issues of Manhunt. And the third issue, March 1953, has also Mickey Spillane, Leslie Charteris, Craig Rice, Bruno Fisher, Richard Prather, Frank Kane, William Lindsay Gresham, Harold Q. Mazur, Robert Wilmot, and Evan Hunter. I mean, it's got a who's who of almost everybody who's in detective fiction, and it's got a Downs cover. Next one is the April issue, and that's the last part of the Spillane story or novel, Everyone's Watching Me. And again, on the back cover, they have the drawings, photos of all of them, and information about the stories and the authors, which is pretty cool. Number 5, 1953, May, they have Cigarette Girl by James M. Cain, and Craig Rice, William McGuire, Ross McDonald, Hal Q. Mazur. Harold Q. Mazur was one of the founders of Mystery Writers of America with Bruno Fisher, and both of them were frequent contributors to Manhunt, and both of them were guests at my New York City book shows, and I interviewed them and actually published some of their stories in Hardboiled. So they continued being active in the hardboiled crime and mystery genre. The June 53 issue, Henry Kane. They always showcased an author, but there were so many other great authors that it's really a who's who of all the classic mystery and hardboiled crime private eye authors. The July 53 issue was no exception. I mean, you've got Frederick Brown, Bruno Fisher, Richard S. Prather, who created Shel Scott, and you have Craig Rice, Frank Kane, Evan Hunter, who wrote under quite a few names. He wrote as William Marsden, he wrote as Hunt Collins and others, and Ed McBain, and many other names in Manhunt. Sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 or 4 Evan Hunter names, pseudonyms on one issue on the contents page. August 53, 12 O'Clock Blonde, James M. Cain, but also Frederick Brown. Donald Hamilton, Evan Hunter. Great cover art. Cover art is by a lot of different people. Walter Popp did some. Robert McGuire did some of the covers. When I know a cover, I'll who the cover artist is, I'll mention it. The September 53 issue is Erskine Caldwell, who was at that point probably with Spillane the two top selling authors in paperback publishing were Mickey Spillane with his books in the early 50s and Erskine Caldwell. In the October issue, Spillane comes back, The Girl Behind the Hedge, and John Ross Macdonald, Richard Prather. David Goodis is represented in this issue as well. November 53, Henry Kane, The Big Touch, and Bruno Fisher, Evan Hunter, and others. December 53, it was a good year, 1953. They did 12 issues. It was $4 for a subscription to Manhunt in those days. $4 would get you 12 issues, one done every month. This is, again, the December 53 issue, and it's Black Pudding by David Goodis, and it's a Frank Upatel cover. Terrific noir cover. And that's the first year of Manhunt. Beginning January 1954, this is the first anniversary issue, and you have a Pattern for Panic by Richard Prather, which was then published in book form. John Ross Macdonald, Craig Rice, Frank Kane, Harold Mauser, Richard Deming, Henry Kane. I mean, this is like unbelievable. Frank Kane and Henry Kane in the same issue. February 54 is Craig Rice, very popular. His crime stories are really good. Her crime stories. I'm thinking of the detective that Craig Rice is. I all of a sudden forgot the name of the
Same moment.
Yeah, the detective Craig Rice is. Male detective that is really a great story. The May 54 issue is James T. Farrell, author of Studs Lonigan, which was a big hit at that time. June 54 is Henry Kane with Bruno Fisher, Craig Rice, Richard Prather, Richard Deming, David Alexander. The July 54, John Ross Macdonald and James T. Farrell. The August 54, I Don't Fool Around, Charles Jackson, who wrote The Lost Weekend, and also Charles Williams and others. The September 54 issue is Jerome Weidman, who wrote I Can Get It For You Wholesale, Sam S. Taylor, B. Traven, who wrote Treasure of Sierra Madre, Evan Hunter, and others. The October 54, I'm not sure if this is a McGuire or not, Erskine Caldwell story, and again Evan Hunter. November 54 is Pistol by Hal Elson. Hal Elson lived in Brooklyn. He wrote hard-boiled juvenile delinquent crime stories and novels, and was very popular. And he lived in Brooklyn, I don't know, about 10 miles away from me, and I never knew it. And I always wanted to get in touch with him, and finally I found out that he lived here, but he had passed away by that time. And it was a shame because I would have loved to meet him, and he was supposedly a very nice, very wonderful guy. I reprinted this story in hard-boiled. Next one is December 1954 issue, Charles Jackson and Jonathan Craig, Hal Elson, Floyd Mahana. Now you see by about this time some of the big names aren't as prevalent as they were in the beginning, but they're still around. This issue, the December 25th, 1954 issue, has a Pickpocket by Mickey Spillane, which is actually the story that I reprinted in hardboiled. Not the Pistol too, actually. And then also Richard Prather, Hal Elson, Craig Rice, Evan Hunter, Mickey Spillane's The Pickpocket is a short little story. Next one is January 55. Erskine Caldwell, John D. MacDonald. I think he makes his first appearance in Manhunt, or at least on the cover. Hal Elson, Richard Deming, Evan Hunter. Next one is February 55. James T. Farrell, and all the usual suspects, and Jonathan Craig. March 55, Erskine Caldwell. Gil Brewer is is listed on the cover of this one. Over here, Gil Brewer, Hal Elson. And the April 55 issue, you have Rex Stout, Ira Levin, Hal Elson. So Ira Levin, who would write Rosemary's Baby and all kinds of other suspense and horror, starts off with crime. That's his first appearance, or at least his first of his name on the cover of Manhunt. And his first Rex Stout, Hal Elson, and other. Edward D. Radin wrote a lot of true crime for the magazine. There was true crime written in these pages. Dan Sontup, who wrote a lot of vintage paperbacks and was a friend of mine and who came to my show as a guest for many years, was a really great guy, and he wrote pretty much a lot of stories and in short articles on true crime articles, crime about gangsters and crime that had happened for Manhunts, because they had also a true crime section. And we're going to move these up a little bit out of the way, and we're going to go to the next stack, and we're starting off May 1955, and we have Earl Stanley Gardner in let me just move those out of the way. Earl Stanley Gardner, first time that I see his name on the cover of Manhunt. Kenneth Fearing, Hal Elson, David Alexander, Jonathan Craig, Bruno Fisher. The June 55 issue is cover art is by Robert McGuire, and what they did was they reprinted Spillane's Everybody's Watching Me, all 4 installments in one issue. So the whole issue, 48 extra pages, and it has the entire Spillane story, or actually short novel, and it has a beautiful Robert McGuire cover, and it has Brett Halliday, Richard Prather, Hal Elson, Frank Kane, Jack Webb, who was not the actor, but the crime author, and Max Franklin, who I believe was Gil Brewer, if I'm not mistaken. The next issue is the July 55 issue, yes. And again, a new Robert McGuire cover. And both of these two great Robert McGuire covers. And Evan Hunter's story, Jonathan Craig, Richard Deming. I just love this cover, and this is the cover that I used for my book, Pulp Crime Digest, which I published quite a few years ago, which has all of the information on Manhunt, as well as all of the crime digests that were Pulp Crime Digest from the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. So I was able to have Bob McGuire, who I was friends with, allowed me to use the painting from Manhunt for the cover of my book, and also has a nice a bit of work in it by Peter Infantino about the digest crime magazines, and a very, very entertaining introduction by Harlan Ellison about when he wrote for those magazines. So I'm just going to show you that while we have the while we have the cover shown. The next issue is August 55, and it's Richard S. Prather is the featured. Richard Prather, author of Shell Scott. He was a really, really great guy, really terrific writer, and had the honor of knowing him and meeting him out in L.A. at the L.A. book show. Really terrific guy. Many other, Bryce Walton, this is the first time he's on the cover. Craig Rice again, Frank Kane. September 55 is James T. Farrell, and you also have Charles Williams in that issue. And the October 55, it's a Brett Halliday, Erskine Caldwell, Hal Elson, Gil Brewer, Jonathan Craig, Stephen Marlowe. The November 55 issue, this is another McGuire cover, and you have W.R. Burnett, hard-boiled crime noir writer, and you have Sam Merwin Jr. and many others, Jonathan Craig. December 55 is First Offense by Evan Hunter, and here they're piggybacking off this notoriety from the Blackboard Jungle, which was popular at that time. I don't know who did this cover, but it's a nice one. January 56, 7 Brutal Shockers, and you have Hal Elson, Jonathan Craig, Frank Kane, and other authors contributing to this issue. But it doesn't really tell you too much on the cover. Then they get back to the cover of February 56 issue, and you have Richard Deming, Fletcher Flora, Hal Elson, Gil Brewer, Frank Kane, other authors here. They give you a good lowdown on who's on the lineup of each issue. March 56 is Brett Halliday, featured author, Mike Shane, detective story. And at this time, I don't believe Mike Shane has started yet. I think Mike Shane Mystery Magazine started in 57, so this is like a little bit before, you know, maybe they were trying it out to see how it would work. The Mike Shane Mystery Magazine, I think, started in 57 and ran until like 87, ran about 30 years. It's amazing. Manhunt ran about from 53 to 67, about 14 years. So this is the April 56 issue, and Helen Nielsen, First Kill. This is the first issue where you have a woman mystery crime writer who's very good, actually, very underrated, as the headline story. And you also have Gil Brewer featured prominently, Robert Turner, who was really good also, and all of these guys. All these guys were another thing that about Manhunt was most of the authors were supplied, and the stories were supplied through the Scott Meredith literary agency in New York City, and a lot of the stories came from Scott Meredith, and they put together a lot of the issues. The May 56 issue, I don't know who did this cover. I'm not sure if it's Walter Pop, but I don't think so. Power Packed issue, it's got everybody in it. Frederick C. Davis, John D. MacDonald, William Campbell Galt, Jack Lynn. This is the first issue where we have John D. MacDonald on the cover, also William Campbell Galt, the author of the Callahan Mysteries and the other hard-boiled series that he wrote, which I can't remember right now, but his Galt's stuff is really terrific. June 56 issue is Walter Pop cover, and this is Marie Pop. This is his wife. She was a model for him. This is probably Walter. This is probably taken from a photo that they did, and then he wrote it. He painted it up. You had Pat Stadley, First time he was on. You have Wenzel Brown, Jack Ritchie. The July 56, another Walter Pop issue, another cover, is you have Charles Williams' story. You also have Jerry Soule, who would be the science fiction writer, become a science fiction writer, wrote for this magazine. And that's again Walter Pop and Marie Pop. The next issue is the August 56 issue, and it's a literary bombshell, Key Witness by Frank Kane, and Jack Ritchie, John B. Starr, C.B. Guilford, Dan Sontup, who I mentioned earlier, and I believe that this is the first issue, or one of the early issues with Harlan Ellison in it, although he's not listed on the cover, much to his chagrin, I would imagine. September 56 issue, Evan Hunter, and 12 new outstanding stories. October 56 issue is William R. Cox, William Campbell Galt, Harry Whittington. You see his name on the cover now. And William Campbell Galt, Gil Brewer. The November 56 is Roy Carroll, Talmadge Powell, Robert Turner, and Jack Hugh Lynn. 4 Hours to Kill by E.J. Smith. I don't know who that is. F.J. Smith. The December 56 issue, Man with a Shiv by Richard Wormser. And on this cover you have the first time of Charles Beaumont on his name on the cover of Manhunt, and Jonathan Craig, Robert Turner, Jack Ritchie, all good writers who wrote really good stuff. January 57 issue is Never Kill the Mistress by Carol Mayers. John D. MacDonald is also listed on the cover. The October 58 issue, again the McGuire cover, which they kind of reused from the earlier issue. Dope to Kill by Edward Wellen, and a lot of other crime writers. Al James, who was one of the authors who wrote for the Scott Meredith Literary Agency, and he wrote some of the Nightstand and other Hamling sleaze books in the 60s, so he would later on write some of that material. But here he was writing a lot of crime short stories for Manhunt and for the other kind of lower markets in this digest crime genre. There were a lot of lower markets for crime stories in the digest, but Manhunt was the top one, and that's the one that every author wanted to sell to first, and then if they couldn't sell to them, they would sell to Offbeat or Trapped or Guilty or one of the others. The December 58 issue is an interesting one. We have it's a Walter Pop cover, and for the first time we see Lawrence Block name on the cover of the issue of Manhunt. The April 59 issue is William O'Farrell, Bryce Walton, Edward Wellen. I believe that's McGuire cover. Just a couple more to go. We're at December 59, and Frank Kane's Dead Reckoning, Johnny Liddell story, and Free to Die by Bryce Walton. And now you'll see this is 59, you see that the authors here are not the same quality and the big names as we were used to seeing on every issue just a couple of years before, 4 or 5 years, before this. This is 59. Frank Haynes, the top guy. Bryce Walton was a guy who wrote a lot of crime stories in the digest, and he also wrote for Falcon Books and others, and he was a pretty competent writer. And they're just not attracting the super big names that they had before, because a lot of those names had, because of being published in Manhunt, had now gone on to writing original novels for paperbacks, and they were being published in books, and instead of the digest magazines. So the digests at this time were kind of getting a little slowing down, and they would. This is a December 1960 issue. It's still the world's most popular crime fiction magazine, Manhunt. Now it's Manhunt, not Manhunt Detective Story Magazine. But the authors and the excitement and the power isn't kind of there. The Dick Shelton is this is a Dick Shelton cover. Obviously, he signed it there. But Manhunt would continue from 1960 for another 7 years. This is the February-March 1967 issue, and Richard Marsden is the the key author on here. Richard Marsden is actually just a pseudonym of Evan Hunter, so it's like Evan Hunter's pseudonym now is the prime author, and Hal Masur is in here also. Nice cover, interesting cover. The other thing I wanted to mention, let's talk about these here, move these out of the way. Again, I just wanted to mention my book, The Pulp Crime Digest, which came out in 2004, and it lists all of these magazines. It's in black and white, because that's all we could do it in those days. 2004 is it's like 17 years ago. But it has all the magazines, some of the British and Australian also, and gives you values on what some of them are going for. The other thing is I want to mention is 2 Starkhouse books. Starkhouse Press is the dream and brainchild of Greg Shepard, and they're from the Pacific Northwest, from Eureka, California, Northern California. Published a lot of outstanding books, and Greg has gotten together with editor Jeff Vorzimmer, and Jeff is Jeff and Greg are 2 really sharp and really creative fellows, and they put together the Best of Manhunt and then the Best of Manhunt Volume 2. And the cool thing about it is, of course, it has all the covers, all those great iconic covers on the cover of the book. It has a foreword by Peter Infantino about Manhunt, which is taken from, I believe, from my book that Peter did, and has a lot of great information about the magazine, about the authors, and let me show you the back covers. Starkhouse, $21, $21.95 trade paperback. Nice, thick, a lot of good stories in these issues. So even if you can't or don't want to collect a run of Manhunt magazines, because they're very collectible. Some of them are a little expensive, and especially in nice condition. You like to have them in nice condition, but as collectors we're happy to get what we can find. But you don't even have to hunt down the magazines. What you could do is just hunt down these 2 books by Starkhouse Press. Go on the internet and look them up, and you'll find them there. They're terrific. Jeff Vorzimmer and Greg Shepard have gone through all the issues and picked out, and Peter Infantino, the best stories by the best writers, and these are excellent. So I hope you like this look at Manhunt. Manhunt's the hard-boiled crime magazine, the successor to Black Mask, and it started a lot of careers of many famous authors wrote there, and the crime authors, Lawrence Block, Donald Westlake, everybody, Spillane, everybody who was anybody was in Manhunt. And we're going to take a look next at the 12 bedsheet issues, because from 1957 to 58 they issued 12 magazine-size issues, which are very scarce, very hard to find, and kind of got lost in the shuffle when the magazine went from digest to magazine size, and then went back to digest size. So there was a bit of a dislocation in that time period. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the hardest crime magazine in the world, Manhunt. And if you did, give us a thumbs up and a like, and see you next time. Thanks.